Before you do anything else, take a moment and ask yourself one question. Why does it feel like something has changed? Why does it feel like a certain family member has been looking at you differently lately? Why does it feel as though a conversation happened behind closed doors, and somehow your name was at the center of it? This message is not for everyone. In fact, many people will click away before they hear what they truly need to hear. But if you stayed, if something inside you felt pulled toward these words, then there is a reason. Because what you're about to hear is connected to a truth that has been hidden for a very long time. A truth that someone in your family has finally discovered. And the moment they discovered it, everything changed. What makes this situation so shocking is that this person never expected to find out what they now know. They weren't looking for answers. They weren't searching for secrets. Yet somehow, piece by piece, clue by clue, the truth began revealing itself. At first they ignored it. Then they questioned it. Then they tried convincing themselves it wasn't real. But eventually, the evidence became impossible to deny. And when they finally accepted the truth, they cried. Not ordinary tears. Not tears of sadness alone. Not tears of regret alone. These were the kind of tears that come when a person realizes they have misunderstood someone for far too long. The kind of tears that come when years of assumptions suddenly collapse. The kind of tears that come when someone's heart whispers, "I was wrong." For so long, this family member thought they knew everything about you. They believed they understood your intentions, your decisions, your silence, your struggles. But they only knew part of the story. They saw the outside. They never saw the battles happening within. They never saw the nights you spent questioning yourself. They never saw the moments when you carried burdens nobody else could carry. They never saw how much strength it took just to keep moving forward. And that's why what happened recently hit them so hard. Because the truth arrived unexpectedly. A conversation. A memory. A discovery. A realization. Something connected together in a way they never imagined. Suddenly, things that once made no sense began making perfect sense. The silence they judged. The distance they questioned. The choices they criticized. Everything started looking different. And that's when the tears came. Because they realized something important. You were never the person they thought you were. You were carrying far more than anyone knew. There is a reason this realization feels so emotional. It's because deep down, this family member remembers moments when they could have supported you. Moments when they could have listened. Moments when they could have stood beside you. But instead, confusion created distance. Assumptions created walls. Misunderstandings created pain. Now they look back on those moments differently. Now they wish they had known what they know today. And that regret is difficult to carry. But the story doesn't end there. Because this truth is doing something unexpected. It isn't just changing how they see your past. It's changing how they see your future. For the first time in a long time, they are beginning to understand your value. Not the value others assign to you. Not the labels people placed upon you. Your real value. The value that was there all along. The strength they overlooked. The resilience they underestimated. The heart they failed to recognize. And that realization has become impossible for them to ignore. There is another reason these emotions have become so intense. Because they now understand how much you sacrificed. Many people only notice sacrifices when they personally benefit from them. But this person is beginning to see sacrifices that happen quietly. The sacrifices nobody applauded. The sacrifices nobody celebrated. The sacrifices nobody even noticed. And once they saw them, their heart broke. Because they understood how much you gave without expecting recognition. How much you endured without asking for sympathy. How much you survived without demanding attention. That kind of realization changes a person. And that's exactly what's happening. The version of you they carried in their mind is disappearing. A new understanding is taking its place. One built on truth instead of assumptions. One built on reality instead of appearances. One built on understanding instead of judgment. But there is something even more surprising. This family member isn't only emotional because of what they learned about your past. They're emotional because of what they now believe about your future. You see, they have started noticing something. Patterns. Changes. Signs. Things they ignored before. And those signs are pointing towards something important. They see growth in you. Growth that can no longer be hidden. Growth that can no longer be dismissed. Growth that can no longer be denied. For years, people may have looked at your life and focused on what wasn't happening. But now someone is finally noticing what is happening. The wisdom you've gained. The strength you've developed. The person you've become. And that realization is powerful. Because when people finally see your growth, they begin seeing your potential. And when they see your potential, everything changes. This family member now understands that your story isn't over. Not even close. In fact, they are beginning to suspect that some of your biggest chapters have not happened yet. They sense movement. Momentum. A shift. Something that feels different from the past. And whether they say it out loud or not, they are paying attention. More attention than ever before. That is why certain conversations have been happening. That is why certain thoughts have been keeping them awake. That is why emotions keep rising unexpectedly. Because the truth has a strange way of changing everything it touches. Once people see it, they cannot unsee it. Once they understand it, they cannot return to ignorance. And this family member has reached that point. There is no going back. The truth is now living inside their heart. The truth about your strength. The truth about your character. The truth about your resilience. The truth about everything you survived when nobody realized what you were facing. And every time they think about it, the emotions return. Not because they pity you, but because they finally respect what you've carried. They finally understand the weight. They finally understand the journey. They finally understand the cost. And perhaps the most shocking part of all is that this realization may be the beginning of healing. Not just for you. For them too. Because truth does something remarkable. It removes masks. It removes misunderstandings. It removes barriers. And once those barriers fall, new possibilities appear. Possibilities that once seemed impossible. Conversations that once seemed unlikely. Understanding that once seemed unreachable. The tears are not the end of this story. The tears are the beginning. The beginning of awareness. The beginning of recognition. The beginning of seeing you clearly. And sometimes that is the most powerful transformation of all. Because when someone finally sees the truth about you, not the rumors, not the assumptions, not the misunderstandings, but the truth, the entire relationship changes. The entire perspective changes. The entire future changes. And right now, somewhere in the quiet corners of someone's heart, that change is already happening. The truth has been revealed. The tears have already fallen. And nothing will ever look the same again. The most unbelievable part of this story is not that a family member discovered the truth about you. The most unbelievable part is what happened after they discovered it. Because once the tears stopped, the thinking began. And once the thinking began, they could not escape a single realization. You were carrying a burden that should never have been carried alone. For days, this person has been replaying old memories inside their mind. Moments they once overlooked. Words they once ignored. Situations they once misunderstood. And every memory now feels different. Imagine watching the same movie twice. The first time you think you understand the plot. The second time you notice details you completely missed. That is exactly what is happening to them. Suddenly they remember moments when your smile looked forced. Moments when you said you were fine even though you weren't. Moments when you quietly walked away from conflict instead of defending yourself. At the time, they misunderstood those moments. Now they see them differently. Now they understand. And that understanding has become impossible to ignore. The truth is hitting them from every direction. Every memory has become evidence. Every forgotten conversation has become a clue. Every overlooked detail has become part of a larger picture. And the picture they see now is shocking. Because it reveals something they never expected. You were stronger than anyone realized. Far stronger. Not because life was easy. Not because everything worked out. But because you kept moving forward when most people would have given up. That realization has shaken them deeply. Because many people measure strength incorrectly. They think strength means never struggling. Never doubting. Never feeling pain. But real strength is continuing despite all of those things. Real strength is surviving seasons that nobody else understands. Real strength is carrying invisible weight without letting it destroy your spirit. And now, this family member finally sees that. That realization alone would have been emotional enough. But something else happened. Something they never expected. As they reflected on your journey, they began noticing another truth. A truth about themselves. They started realizing that their own fears, assumptions, and misunderstandings played a role in creating distance. This was difficult for them to accept. Nobody enjoys facing uncomfortable truths. Nobody enjoys realizing they may have judged someone unfairly. Nobody enjoys discovering that they misunderstood a person who deserved more understanding. Yet that is exactly what happened. And when that realization arrived, the tears returned. Because regret has a way of touching the deepest parts of the heart. Especially when the regret involves someone you care about. This family member keeps asking themselves one question. What if I had known sooner? What if they had understood your struggles earlier? What if they had seen beyond appearances? What if they had listened more carefully? What if they had supported you differently? These questions have been echoing inside them. And although the past cannot be changed, the future can. That is why something important is happening right now. A shift. A quiet but powerful shift. The way they think about you is changing. The way they talk about you is changing. The way they feel about you is changing. The respect is growing. The understanding is growing. The appreciation is growing. And that change is becoming stronger every day. But there is another layer to this story. A layer few people see coming. Because while this family member was discovering the truth about you, they also began noticing something unusual. People around them speak about you differently now. Your name enters conversations unexpectedly. Certain opportunities seem to appear around you. Certain doors seem closer to opening. Certain possibilities seem closer to becoming reality. At first they dismissed these observations. But eventually they noticed a pattern. And patterns are difficult to ignore. The pattern suggested something powerful. Your life is moving. Not standing still. Not frozen. Moving. Progressing. Evolving. Even if that progress has been invisible to others. Even if that progress has happened quietly. Even if that progress has taken longer than expected. It is happening. And this family member can see it. That realization fills them with emotions they struggle to explain. Because they remember the older version of you. The version that doubted themselves. The version that carried confusion. The version that felt overlooked. Now they see someone different emerging. Someone wiser. Someone stronger. Someone more prepared. Someone more aware of their own worth. And that transformation is impossible to ignore. There is something fascinating about human nature. People often fail to notice change when it happens slowly. Day by day. Month by month. Year by year. The growth becomes invisible. Until one day, they suddenly see it all at once. And that moment is exactly what this family member is experiencing. They are seeing years of growth all at once. Years of resilience all at once. Years of strength all at once. No wonder the emotions are overwhelming. No wonder the truth brought tears. No wonder their perspective changed. Because they are finally seeing what was always there. A person who refused to quit. A person who continued despite setbacks. A person who kept going when easier options existed. And now another realization has arrived. One that may be even more powerful. This family member no longer believes your story is defined by your hardest chapters. Instead, they believe those chapters prepared you for something greater. Prepared you for lessons. Prepared you for growth. Prepared you for opportunities. Prepared you for a future that looks different from the past. That belief is growing stronger every day. In fact, there are moments when they catch themselves imagining what comes next for you. The possibilities. The breakthroughs. The victories. The moments that have not happened yet. And every time they imagine those possibilities, hope replaces regret. Hope replaces fear. Hope replaces doubt. Because they are beginning to trust something important. They are beginning to trust your ability to overcome. To adapt. To rise. To keep moving forward. That trust means everything. Especially because it comes from someone who once misunderstood you. There is tremendous power in being truly seen. Not partially seen. Not misunderstood. Not judged unfairly. Truly seen. And that is what is happening now. The truth has stripped away old assumptions. The truth has revealed hidden realities. The truth has exposed strengths that were invisible before. And because of that, this family member feels differently every time they think about you. They think about your perseverance. Your courage. Your patience. Your endurance. They think about all the things you survived. All the things you overcame. All the things you handled quietly. And those thoughts continue to move them emotionally. The tears were never about weakness. The tears were about realization. The realization that they underestimated your journey. The realization that they misunderstood your heart. The realization that your story contains far more strength than they ever imagined. And now, as they look ahead, they no longer see someone struggling to survive. They see someone becoming stronger through every challenge. They see someone whose story is still unfolding. They see someone whose future chapters may be far brighter than anyone expects. Most importantly, they see someone worthy of understanding. Worthy of respect. Worthy of appreciation. Worthy of recognition. And that is why this truth matters so much. Because once a person finally sees who you really are, once they finally understand what you've carried, once they finally recognize the strength that has always existed within you, there is no returning to the old version of the story. The old assumptions disappear. The old misunderstandings fade. The old judgments lose their power. Only the truth remains. And the truth they discovered about you is something they will never forget.